In 2002, 3 miles from Stonehenge, archaeologists uncovered a grave that would change everything we thought we knew about this place. Inside was a man. He had traveled over 1,000 miles to reach these stones, walking across the Alps, through what is now France, across the English Channel. With a knee so badly infected the bone had been partially destroyed, and an abscess in his jaw so severe it had eaten through part of his skull. He carried with him nearly 100 possessions: gold, copper, flint arrowheads, more than any person buried in Britain for 1,000 years in either direction. And when scientists tested his bones, they discovered something extraordinary. He had arrived at Stonehenge at the exact moment the monument was being transformed, as if he knew, as if he had come for a reason. The question is, what was that reason? Because the answer to that question doesn't just explain why a dying man crossed a continent, it reveals what Stonehenge actually was. And it wasn't a temple. It wasn't an observatory. It wasn't a calendar. It was something far more unsettling and far more profound. His name, or rather the name archaeologists gave him, is the Amesbury Archer. He was discovered in 2002 during a routine excavation ahead of a housing development near the village of Amesbury in Wiltshire, England, just 3 miles from Stonehenge. Isotope analysis of his tooth enamel, a technique that reveals where a person grew up based on the chemical signature of the water they drank as a child, placed his origins in the alpine regions of Central Europe, modern-day Switzerland or southern Germany. He was between 35 and 45 years old when he died, around 2300 BC, and his body told a story of extraordinary suffering. His left kneecap was severely infected, a condition called osteomyelitis, which would have made every step agonizing. The infection had been present for years. He also had a dental abscess so advanced that it had destroyed part of his jawbone. Yet when they opened his grave, the archaeologists were stunned. He had been buried with 98 objects, the richest Bronze Age burial ever found in Britain. Among them, a pair of gold earrings, the oldest gold artifacts ever found in Britain, 5 beaker pots, 16 flint arrowheads, 3 copper knives, a metalworking toolkit, boar tusks, a shale ring. But the story gets stranger. Just 15 feet from the archer, archaeologists found a second skeleton, a younger man, between 20 and 25 years old. And when they examined both skeletons carefully, they found the two men shared an extremely rare bone anomaly, a calcaneonavicular coalition, a hereditary fusion of bones in the foot. They were almost certainly father and son, and both had died near the stones they had crossed a continent to reach. Now, the question that haunted archaeologists wasn't how they got here, it was why. Professor Tim Darvill of the University of Bournemouth proposed something that many archaeologists initially resisted. He argued that Stonehenge was a destination of healing, that the Amesbury Archer hadn't come to worship. He'd come because he was dying, and something about the stones was believed to have the power to heal, and when you examine the evidence, it's hard to argue with. To understand why a dying man would cross Europe to reach Stonehenge, you need to understand something about the stones themselves, not the giant sarsen stones that form the famous outer circle. Those came from Marlborough Downs, about 25 miles away. It's the smaller ones, the bluestones, and where they came from changes everything. The bluestones, roughly 80 of them, each weighing between 2 and 5 tons, were transported over 150 miles from the Preseli Hills in southwest Wales, in an age before the wheel. For decades, this fact alone baffled researchers. Why would Neolithic people drag multi-ton stones across 150 miles of mountains, rivers, and valleys when perfectly good stone existed much closer? The answer may lie in what these stones can do. Researcher Paul Devereaux found that an unusually high proportion of the stones are what geologists call lithophones. When struck, they ring, like bells. The village nearest to the bluestone quarries in Preseli is called Maenclochog. In Welsh, that translates to the stone that rings like a bell. These weren't just stones. They were known as singing stones, rocks believed to carry a kind of living vibration. In 2012, researchers conducted the first comprehensive acoustic study of Stonehenge. They built digital models of the original, complete monument. and what they discovered was that the original unbroken Stonehenge was an acoustic chamber. The human voice was amplified. Sound generated inside the circle could not escape. Think about what this means. 5,000 years ago, someone designed and built a structure from stone that functioned as a sensory isolation chamber, a space where sound was amplified, contained, and potentially used to alter human consciousness. Now, the coincidence, ringing stones transported 150 miles to a site engineered for acoustic containment, is difficult to dismiss. And there's one more thing. Archaeologists have found bluestone chips scattered all around the site. People were taking pieces of the bluestones with them, the way pilgrims at Lourdes take holy water. The bluestones were sacred, they were believed to heal, and a man with a shattered knee and a rotting jaw crossed a continent to reach them. But Stonehenge wasn't just a healing site. What Professor Mike Parker Pearson uncovered suggests something far more vast. Stonehenge, he argued, was only half of a system. 2 miles to the northeast sites Durrington Walls. Where Stonehenge is made of permanent stone, Durrington Walls was built from timber, wood, a material that, like the human body, decays and returns to the earth. Durrington Walls faces the sunrise. Stonehenge faces the sunset, one for life, one for death. The river Avon, which flows between the two sites, was the passage between worlds, the ritual journey. The living would process from Durrington Walls along the river, arriving at Stonehenge where the dead were honored, cremated, and committed to eternity in stone. More than 60 cremation burials have been found at Stonehenge itself, making it the largest known cremation cemetery in Neolithic Britain. By contrast, Durrington Walls was the domain of daily life, feasting and pottery, the residue of the living. Let me say that again, because I don't want you to miss the scale of what was built here. 5,000 years ago, a civilization constructed a landscape-scale system for processing the transition between life and death. One site for the living, one site for the dead, a river between them as the crossing point. Timber that decays, stone that endures, sunrise for arrival, sunset for departure. This wasn't a temple, it was consciousness infrastructure, built to manage the most fundamental transition a human being can undergo. In August of 2024, a study revealed that the altar stone at the heart of Stonehenge came from the Orcadian Basin in northeast Scotland, over 750 kilometers away. This is the longest documented transport of a megalithic stone anywhere in Neolithic Europe. How and why would people in Scotland send a 6-ton stone to a monument in southern England 5,000 years ago? Professor Parker Pearson suggested it may have been given as a gift, an act of alliance. Stonehenge is the only one that draws its stones from multiple distant regions of the island. It was built as a monument of unification, a place where the peoples of Britain, north, south, west, brought their most sacred stones together to create something that belonged to all of them. And the timing is critical, because Stonehenge was being transformed during precisely the period when a new population was arriving from continental Europe, a population that would change the island forever. In 2018, a genetic study published in Nature revealed one of the most dramatic population changes in the ancient world. Beginning around 2400 BC, the Bell-Beaker people began entering Britain. Within just a few centuries, genetic studies show that more than 90% of the Neolithic British gene pool had been replaced. Within generations, the original builders faded from the genetic record. The people who conceived Stonehenge, their bloodlines were almost entirely erased, and yet the monument they built endured. The Amesbury Archer, the man who walked across Europe to reach these stones, was himself a Bell-Beaker individual. He wasn't one of the builders, he was one of the people who replaced them. And yet he came. He came because even after the builders vanished, the power of what they built remained. The stones still rang. The dead were still honored. The healing was still sought. The monument outlived its creators. It outlived their language, their DNA, their civilization. And somehow, impossibly, it still transmitted their knowledge to a population that had never known them. The empty center of the monument represents a birth canal. The monument itself symbolizes the womb of the earth. At the winter solstice, The sun sets directly through the southwest trilithon, its light penetrating into the central chamber. This was the moment of symbolic union, the Sun Father at his weakest, entering the Earth Mother at her darkest, so that light and life could be reborn. And at the summer solstice, the sun rises and pours light into the heart of the monument. That was the completion of the cycle, the renewal of life, the return of the sun. Stonehenge was a machine for rebirth. The living processed from Durrington walls to Stonehenge, carrying their dead to be committed to eternity. And within the stone womb of the monument, in the presence of the singing bluestones, the dead were not simply buried. They were returned to the earth, and through the earth, reborn. The Amesbury Archer wasn't just seeking healing for his body. He was seeking transformation, passage, the promise that death is not an ending but a doorway. 5,000 years ago, a civilization built something that their own descendants could not have explained. They vanished, but the stones did not. They're still standing, still aligned. And if you visit Stonehenge today, at dawn on the summer solstice, you can still watch the sun rise and flood the center with light, exactly the way it did 5,000 years ago, for people whose names we will never know, for a purpose we are only now beginning to understand. If this changed how you see the ancient world, subscribe. There is so much more buried in our past than we've been told.